Okay, hi and welcome to this Atlassian user group Stockholm. My name is Mattias Olsson and I'm the user group leader. I am very happy to be here and I'm very grateful that we can have this venue. This is sponsored by JIRA and we have some sponsorship from Aftonbladet. I couldn't imagine that we should be so many this time. I was counting on 40, maybe 50 people. Here we are, 200 registered for this event. Tommy, do you have anything that you want to say about the...
I just want also to greet you welcome. My name is Tommy Nordahl, I'm the CEO of JIRA. We're an Atlassian expert operating in Stockholm and in Sweden, helping our customers to succeed in the adoption of Atlassian software. I hope you had something to eat there. There are wraps over there and there's an open door over there. So I'm looking forward for some great presentations here today. I would like to say that this was a world record. I don't know, we have to do the head count later on. But I think the biggest user group ever in Atlassian was 125 or something.
Yeah,
in San Francisco, yeah. So I hope we will break the world record today. All right. So once again, very welcome, and have a very good evening.
Yes. Okay, so we have 3 presentations. We have Linda from Aftonbladet. We have Svante, who's going to talk about Sefir from JIRA, quality management. And then we have Sven here. He's from Germany. He's Atlassian ambassador in Europe. So it's very nice to have him here in Sweden. He's here for J-Focus. How many here are on the J-Focus? Not that many. Okay. If you take next slide. So I just wanted to inform you about the Atlassian user group. So this is actually an open user group for everyone that uses Atlassian products or planning to start using it. So this is a place where we share information with each other. So it's a bit sponsored by Atlassian, but this is mainly a user group outside Atlassian. It should be open for everyone. Okay, now I want to introduce Linda from Aftonbladet.
That's right. Hi everybody, can you hear me? Yeah, works well. My name is Linda Konstenius. I work for Swedish newspaper Aftonbladet, which I'm sure most of you here are fairly familiar with. I will talk a bit today about the project that we were working on and launched last year, which is basically to do with collecting tips from our readers and also having an administration system where we handle and sort all these tips. And that is basically where JIRA come into the picture. I am a project manager with Aftonbladet, and I was a project manager of this project. And I'd also like to say that it's great to see so many of you here. I did not expect this kind of turnout. And if you have questions, I was thinking if you have like quick, short questions, I'm happy to just take them during the presentation. Then again, I realize I may not see all of you, since a lot of you sit actually behind me. Otherwise, anytime after the presentation or later when we mingle, or if you want to contact me later, you're very welcome with questions. Briefly, I run through what I'll be talking about today. I mentioned a few words about Aftonbladet. And I also like to say that we are a co-sponsor of this event. We're paying for the wraps. That's our job, to make sure you guys aren't hungry. Anyway, then I'll go on to talk just briefly about the background to this project. Why are we doing it, and like what's the big point? And I'll also talk about why we're using JIRA. What's that doing here? I'll talk a little bit about the team that's been building this, the architecture behind it, and then mainly also I want to focus on actually showing you guys what the system that we developed looks like. Anyway, Aftonbladet is Sweden's, I would say, most visited, most read news source. We have daily almost 3 million readers. Unfortunately, that isn't copies sold of the print newspaper. That is a figure, a combined figure of readers through all our channels.
Don't mind taking the mic because from the back.
Okay, yeah, is that better? Right, okay, I'll try to do that. And on the web, we have still our biggest channel. We have about 5.5 million unique visitors weekly. For mobile, we are about 2.5 million weekly unique visitors. And I think what's interesting with those figures is that for web, that is sort of stalling and almost maybe like dipping a little bit from last year. Whereas for mobile, it's still going straight up. And what's also interesting here is on the revenue side that up until very recently, we haven't really made any money at all on the mobile, whereas that's changing very quickly. And actually, last year for us was a bit of a benchmark. It was the first year ever when the advertising revenue that we received from online actually exceeded the revenue from advertising from print. And we're very proud of that, and as far as we know, we're actually the first newspaper in the world for that to happen to. We have been around for a long time, since 1830, and we've been on the web since 1994. And I think that also makes us one of the first, at least European newspapers online. And we believe that that's been very much the reason behind our success that we have today. The department at Aftonbladet that I come from is called IT Development. We are about 60 people at the moment. Just over half of that is staff, and the other half is actually consultants. We use a lot of consultants. We've been working with agile methodologies since about 2006, and that is also what led us on to using Atlassian's products. First out was JIRA, which led us on to Greenhopper, and later also Confluence and Bamboo. For a while we were using Fisheye, but we're not at the moment, I think. And I don't actually remember why. Anyway, the project Tipsa started here. And this is a school. It's Hyper Island School in Karlskrona. And basically it was a group of students that had the idea for us to have a sort of gamification app where readers would be reporters that would send us information. It ended up looking pretty much like this. We boiled down their ideas. Their ideas were very much more advanced than what we actually ended up doing, so we'll save the rest for later. But we talked a lot also internally with editorial and what was actually doable and in our interests to do. So basically through our hybrid app, the original idea was to make like a standalone app, and then we figured it's better that we use all the users that we already have. So it was in the end incorporated into the main Aftonbladet app. And from here, people can send us tips with images and video. And what we also can do is that our editors may push messages out to users of the app to request information about specific events. They may do so to everyone that has the app, or an editor could also choose to select a specific geographic area to send tips to only people that are currently in that area. Okay, and that was one part of the project, and the other part of the project is how we receive all these tips and what the editors actually do with them once we get them to Aftonbladet. And then we figured, okay, we need a good administration system for that. We already actually had an administration system, but we figured that with this mobile app we would receive more tips than we've had before, and we thought that the system we had couldn't really handle that. And that's why we decided to build a new administration system. But then we also thought, okay, an administration system for tips should have a lot to do with just any kind of issue handling systems. Because a tip from a reader is very much like an issue. Someone sends us a piece of information, and when it's a tip, rather than assigning that to a developer, we assign that to a reporter. And the reporter follow the tip up, they call the person who left it, make sure the facts are okay, taking details for the person to be later rewarded if we used it. So we thought, okay, we can probably save a lot of time pretty much and gain a lot of functionality if we use JIRA. We also figured we know JIRA fairly well. We'd not developed any own plugins for JIRA, but we had, as users, we had a good experience with JIRA. We also like the fact that it's a widely used product. It has a large user community. It's very configurable, which makes it very powerful. And pretty much we thought the bottom line is that we figured we could get more functionality for less work compared to if we would develop all this from scratch ourselves. The team that's been working on this was in effect like two teams. We had one team that built the back end and all the JIRA administration. And then we had another team that built the mobile interface. And we also had a user experience designer, a visual designer, a project manager, which was me, and a product owner for the whole project. We really wanted to find someone, at least one person, preferably more people, but at least one person that had good experience of JIRA from the start, writing plugins. We thought that would save us a lot of time. It was really difficult to find someone. I think we turned to all the Atlassian partners in Stockholm, and at the time, they could not help us with this. But then we found somebody on our own, actually, and kind of a bit of luck. So that worked out great in the end. And also at the bottom of my slide, I wrote Schibsted-Centralen. That is a company that provides a lot of shared services for Schibsted companies in Sweden. And Aftonbladet is owned by Schibsted, so we use a lot of services from Centralen. And in this case, they are hosting most of the applications running this, and they are now also actually responsible for the service. So the service manager of the system is here tonight too. This is most of the people that actually built this. Not everyone is on the picture. And the three guys in the very middle are also here tonight. So if you have any questions for them later, just shoot. This is the technical architecture. It's a simplified illustration, I would say, of the technical architecture. At the top, you can see boxes representing the various incoming channels for tips. We may receive tips through email, through a form on the website, through our mobile applications, or through SMS or NNS. And of course also just through telephone, but what happens then is that someone just enter like a manual issue or ticket then in JIRA. The tips broker in the middle is a very central component of the whole architecture. The tips broker is what actually receives all the tips, validates the data to make sure it's correct, and also applies certain rules to tips. Like for instance, some basic tagging, so we can say that, okay, all tips that come in sent from a certain email address or from a certain number should be tagged as press releases or not interesting, maybe in JIRA. We also temporarily archive tips, that's what you see to the left, to be less dependent on whether JIRA would actually not be responding. And also the boxes at the very bottom is links, is integration with our image system. You see this is actually our web content management systems. You may export image galleries with tips from JIRA to Vicini, and Store is our image archive. So we may also send good images that we want to save maybe for later or publish in the newspaper. You can send from JIRA to Store. We created a lot of plugins ourselves, and we used a bunch of others plugins. Especially, I'd like to mention these two that we're using. One is called Dashboard Distribution, and we use it to be able to distribute dashboards in an easier way. Otherwise, standard JIRA, it's up to the user to make a dashboard their own favorite. Pretty much what we're doing here is that we're shooting out dashboards to everyone after they've logged in. We also use a plugin called Email This Issue. And the need for that is that sometimes we receive information through the system that isn't actually a tip. So it could be just a customer service request, someone who's wants to even advertise in the paper, and editors need to have a way to send that information on to somebody more relevant in the organization that doesn't have access to this JIRA installation. All right, okay, that was the presentation part. And I thought next I will actually show you a bit of our system. Okay, interesting. All right, here we go. Yeah, I think that will do. I've already logged in here. This is our development environment for TIPSA. It looks slightly different to the production environment. It's a little bit more cluttered. The aesthetic in me doesn't like it that it's like a dark green here. It's supposed to be red, but we need to have a clear way of making sure we don't confuse it with the production environment. Also here is a little bit of a mishmash between Swedish and English. Okay, there we go. And we have this top menu here. Uh-oh. Okay, that's not good. I think it's been dropping the... Okay, it's coming back. Alright, sorry, I think I dropped my VPN connection. Sorry about that. I'm just quickly gonna log in again. Pretty much we have about 100 editors that have access to the system. Some use it occasionally, some use it a few times every day maybe, and we have especially one person who has this as her main work tool. She is the TIPS editor or TIPS administrator, and her job is pretty much to go through all incoming TIPS, mark them up if they're interesting or not, or if they are for a certain department. And she also makes sure that we have the correct information for those TIPS that need to be rewarded. And we pretty much reward all TIPS that lead to articles that we do write. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and this projects menu here is we've kind of taken away in the production environment. Since we only actually have one single project in this installation, we figure we don't really need a menu for projects. But for other reasons, we do have it here. Anyway, what you see here is what we call the inbox. It's sort of like a dashboard. And this is all incoming TIPS that you see here without any sort of filter applied. The editor who sits here needs to very quickly be able to make a decision whether this is interesting or not. So we tried to create like a clear overview. So in most cases, you shouldn't have to open a TIP to be able to say if it's interesting or not. You should just be able to see that in the information we display. We've also worked a lot to get shortcuts to work, so that this would be like a really smooth, quick system. So you can use like arrow keys, you can select multiple TIPS with your keys and so forth. If you want to say that this, for instance, is not interesting, we have a button for that, or you can also just hit 6 and it goes away. Yeah. Okay.
How many tips do you receive each day?
Oh, I don't even remember now. Is it about, sometimes people say 1,000, but I think it's actually less. Anybody else remember? Yeah, 500-600 maybe? And then again, it depends a lot. Partly, obviously, it depends on what actually happens in the word. And then it also depends on how actively our editors actually look for tips. Like sometimes we publish like something on our start page on the web saying, please send us information about this. That really helps a lot. Yeah, and basically for these buttons that you can see on each chip, they represent components, and here we use JIRA's components as a way of sorting tips. We also show images on tips. You can, with the space bar, just click them up. Yeah, here we have 2 images, so you can just like go through them. It's an interesting Skype meeting we had there. And if you want to write comments, you can do that. The connection is a little funny. Anyway, the point with that button is that you can write comments straight on this page without actually having to open that tip or issue. Next thing I want to show you is how we work with images. We have like an image view. That is, let's say you want to do like you want to publish an image gallery with lots of pictures and a certain theme. It could be nice looking Christmas trees around the country, or like a kind of usually like a nice little subject like that. So it's still thinking. And then rather than sending each image individually to the CMS, you can actually, from this system, I think I dropped, that's too bad. Sorry about that, I think I dropped the VPN connection again. Basically what you can do then with the images is that you collect, like in the system, you get like a nice view with only the pictures from tips. And you can also add bylines and captions for each image. And you can export that to the CMS. All right, listen everybody. Okay, listen everybody, I'm really sorry about this. There is no 3D coverage here pretty much, and the network just dropped. So I'm very sorry I won't be able to show you guys everything I wanted to show you today, which sort of really sucks. So I can't show you the image view, but anyway, I kind of explained already the idea behind that. Another thing that I hope I still have up here, I do, okay, is what we call, this is actually our production environment, but obviously now I'm not logged in here, so it's not like, this is just like sort of like a dead page at the moment. But basically what you can do here, the page you see right now is messages that we have already sent out to people. And what I wanted to do was to send out a new one, or at least imitate sending out like a new one. And basically what you do then is you type in some text that you want to be displayed in the message and in the list in the app that shows all the current missions, as we sort of call them. And there is also a map. You actually make a selection of the area that you want people that are in that area to receive the message, which is pretty cool. And you also get like a number back telling you an estimate of how many people will receive your push message. And then you may send it out. Lastly, another plugin that we made is a sort of administration interface. JIRA's administration interface is very powerful, but we don't really have any editorial users that we want to use that. But they have other needs too. So we created our own little editorial administration. And basically this is like a select group of people still that have access to that. And what they can do from there is to create rules for incoming tips. Let's say, like I mentioned before, if from a certain address number, it's always like a certain kind of message that comes in that is important or not. We can tag that already from the start. And also, like a lot of people may only contact us like once in a lifetime, but we also have a bunch of users that are regular contributors of this sort of information. And then we don't want to bother them, calling them, asking about their bank details like every single time that we publish their stories. So then it's nice to have, like, we can autofill information about users depending on a certain set of criteria from the start. All right, and that was pretty much what I wanted to show you. I'm sorry that the presentation, the demo, didn't quite work the way I intended it to. But if you have questions later, or if the network connection works later, I could show you guys in the mingle if anyone is interested. I also want to mention just quickly that at Aftonbladet this is seen as a very successful project on many levels. And most users have been very pleased with the system. And in fact now we're just embarked on a new project that is fairly similar. And again, for this new project, we just started it last week, we are actually using JIRA and turning it into an editorial planning system. It's basically for editors to keep track of like which reporter is working on what story and what are we going to publish today and tomorrow and so forth in the newspaper and on the website and in mobile. So yeah, that's exciting. We're very excited about that. And yeah, anyway, thank you for listening.